Welcome to the Chord Savvy Studio here in Atlanta, Georgia, where we're going to have singer-songwriter Ben Bostick come in and he's going to perform an original song of his, Too Dark to Tell, and then I'm going to sit down with him and ask him about his musical journey of writing, recording, selling his own music, and then we'll dig into the craft of songwriting.
In this dark night, it's too hard for me to say now if the rays of hope can shine again someday, and if I might be spared as the tempest starts to swell. At this point, it's just too dark to tell. Was the stars guiding me to God's shores now? Was the devil set me drifting once more? Will these clouds ever lift and the map again reveal? At this point, it's just too dark to tell. If these green-eyed blues would lighten up, if my nature would shake this wicked spell, if this midnight sky brighten up, if my ears could hear a voice saying, all will be well, then all is well, all is well. I once was found, but now again I'm lost. On merciless waves I am tossed. I would tell you of His grace, how it was I felt, but some tales are just too dark to tell. These green-eyed blues would lighten up, if my nature would shake this wicked spell, if this midnight sky would brighten up, if my ears could hear a voice saying, all will be well, then all is well, all is well. I once was found, now again I'm lost. On merciless waves I am tossed. I would tell you of His grace and how it was I felt. Some tales are just too dark to tell.
Can you tell us more about the lyrics in the song?
Sure. Lyrics, this is another idea I had, a literary idea, I guess you would call it, to start with, which was, I'm sure there's a name for the genre of song that has a phrase which has a changing meaning throughout the song. But I had this phrase, too dark to tell, in my head, and I knew it was going to be literal at first, or actually, it's not true. It's not literal in the song ever, but it was going to mean it was too dark to be able to see the future.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the later verses, it means if something is so dark and disturbing that you can't talk about it, too dark to tell. That was the original idea that I had behind the song. And from there, I knew I wanted to have a hymn-like quality, to have it be in Southern gospel style. Are You Washed in the Blood, sort of traditional sounding hymn style, but it would be a dark tale about someone on the verge of despair, someone where the future was too dark to tell. And I from the beginning in the concept, I had it in my mind that there was going to be a contrast between the music and the lyrics. Because a lot of old hymns can sound like that, and a lot of blues, early blues and folk blues, country blues can sound like this. You'll have really dark lyrics and then almost a jaunty sounding music. So I was listening to Elizabeth Cotten, who did Freight Train and Going Down the Road Feeling Bad. And she's like a wizard at that kind of feel. And I knew that's what I was going for. And as I started writing, a nautical theme sort of came about, and I'm a big fan in lyrics writing to try not to go too far afield from the original idea. So I maintained a nautical imagery along with the changing meaning of Too Dark to Tell. So it's something that's adrift on the sea, at God's shore and everything.
And is there a personal experience that you were writing around, or it's really just you're kind of writing a fictitious story and taking that view?
I think in all of my writing, some of my writing is directly personal. I'll write exactly or as close to the truth as I can get. And other songs that I write are about the feeling of the song. And I do relate to all my songs. I never, at least to the ones that I put out into the world, it will never be something that, like I don't get. You know what I mean? It's always, there's some grain of me in it somewhere. And I think a lot of people have confronted despair or have felt doubt about just what's going to happen in the future. And in that way, it can be construed as a general song. It's using a lot of traditional imagery, I would say, stuff that's, I didn't invent any new images or metaphors for this.
And what about there was a voice that makes you feel well that you hear, I think, in the song. Is there a voice in your life that you were thinking of?
In this song, my intention was to make that God's voice, the presence of a God. If you could hear a voice saying all is well, then all is well. But this guy apparently is not hearing his voice.
Interesting. When I heard it, I was like, I wonder if it's his mother's voice or wife's voice.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we all write from a personal space, but sometimes there's this narrative that comes to mind. And it's interesting where I'm hearing you say you kind of weave both of those together. So you it's not really, this song in particular isn't about a specific personal point of despair in your life and your lowest low where you're unwilling to talk about it, but it's really you combining, I guess, these hymnal qualities on the musical side with these lyrical themes and also kind of a darker lyrical subject. And that's how it came together.
That's how it came together. It's actually probably a good while between when I came up with the idea for the song and then when I hit on a musical idea that I thought accompanied it well.
Okay. And how did you find the musical part?
Just doodling around. Finger picking. This one is it's in the key of B, but because I'm playing guitar a half step down, so I'm playing it in C shape wise on the fretboard. And it's a really easy melodic position to play for fingerstyle stuff. Very accessible to do the kind of melodies that are on in there. So I was just doodling around one day. I don't know what I was doing. And I hit upon that melody and I just knew within seconds, I was like, oh, this is that song. This is finally that song.
Songs are a marriage waiting to be made, right? You've got the music and the lyrics, the bride and the groom, right? And you're just saying, when am I going to get the right match? And so it was really that inspirational in that moment
Yeah,
for you.
it clicked. It was one of those that clicked.
Very cool. And also, I mean, there were kind of 4 chords in general, I think. There's a C, G, and F, and an A minor shape.
That's it.
You really test the limits of that with all sorts of different voicings. Talk about how you approach that aspect of songwriting, how you make a simple progression sound so much more interesting.
This one is really informed. It's sort of in a Travis picking style, which is, I guess, a loose term based on Merle Travis's style. It's more Chet Atkins style. I really love Tommy Emmanuel because he really shreds and he does a lot of impressive stuff. But his more melodic stuff is absolutely beautiful, I think. And for this tune, I was trying to channel some of the more to take the simples, the harmonies of these chords, and just push it a little bit. Like I'm using minor 11 chords in there, which are to me like the most normal sounding. They sound more normal than like a regular 7 chord to me. So you have these different harmonies in there that sound beautiful and open. That was the feel I was going for. But maintaining the country-ish feel too, the country folk feel. So a lot of it was just finding these different harmonies in there. No, I didn't want to go too far afield or distractingly afield. Because one thing I try not to do is make people notice my harmony. I don't want anybody to go, man, you really did that minor 11 chord. You want to make it an effect. You want to make, for all of writing for me, I want people who hear it to just feel it. And that's it. And there's a lot of room to do that in those 4 simple chords.
Is there anything else musical or interesting in the song that you'd like to highlight that most people wouldn't notice on the first take?
I mean, a really subtle thing is the song's in AABA form, and the AABA, the last A, is slightly different than the first couple A's. You might call it an A prime, and musically it's a pretty straightforward song.
Why did you change the last A? What makes it prime?
The last for A is the turn in the lyrics where the phrase now means something else. It means it's too difficult to talk about. And I wanted it to just be that little, also musically just a tiny bit different. And it's very subtle. The same chords, just slightly different timing.
Let's step out now in a more general sense on songwriting. What advice would you give to people that are writing their own songs as a songwriter?
My tips for songwriters are: 1, write music that you want to hear. Don't write songs you don't like. 2, imitate the writers and artists that you love. And 3, write a lot. Keep practicing until you can make choices about what you want to write instead of having your limitations dictate what you write.
Can you remember the first song you wrote?
I remember an early song. I don't know what the first song is that I wrote, but it was about a kid who was nicknamed Beef. in my middle school, we would, before I'd played an instrument or had any aspirations to be musical at all, my friends and I used to make up like raps and songs about our friends.
Cool.
We had a friend named Keith, who everybody called Beef.
Uh-huh.
Made up a little ditty about him.
And this is middle school?
This is middle school, yeah.
Very cool.
6th grade.
When did you confidently know you were a songwriter? What age did you really say, hey, I'm a songwriter?
Oh man, when did I really take that designation on? I don't know. I had a high school band and I thought I was John Lennon back then. So pretty early and prematurely, probably. And I don't know. It's songwriting is such a funny thing. My personal belief about songwriting is probably unpopular among songwriters, is that it doesn't matter as much as performance.
Why is that?
Go to a karaoke bar. Yeah. That's all you have to do, and you listen to people sing the greatest songs ever written, and it's awful, you know. And then you hear an amazing singer do "Mary Had a Little Lamb," and it's amazing. Mm-hmm. Not to knock "Mary Had a Little Lamb," great tune, but it is a great song is as good as the performance can. It makes a great performance possible.
Mm. So let's talk about performing then. What the evolution of you as a performer? I mean, were you always this confident? I mean, you know, what was it like early on, and how did you kind of really learn to be a better performer?
I wouldn't say that I'm very confident now. I'm definitely more confident than I was. Early on, I had when I was playing in high school bands, it was just, you know, it was fun. And you're playing for your friends, so it was sort of easy because you can goof around in front of your friends all the time. Yeah. And then throughout my 20s, I really didn't perform as a solo artist. And I played as a guitarist in some bands pretty casually until I got into a band that was more serious. And that was my first experience being on stage in front of bunches of strangers. And that was definitely a different animal. Though as a guitarist, it's easier to perform, I think, because nobody's looking at you unless it's the solo. And then during the solo, you can look down at your strings and people think, oh, he's concentrating. Yeah. As a solo artist, that really came from performing on the Santa Monica Pier in front of people, and it was very nerve-wracking when I first started busking. I was like self-conscious setting up. Like people are looking at me and they know I'm gonna like play, and it made me nervous.
That's kind of the point.
Yeah, but it made me nervous as like people are glancing at me while I'm unpacking my guitar. Yeah. And then you get up there and nobody's stopping before you play. Yeah. And so you just go, I just gotta hit the first note, I guess. And it's nerve-wracking. You just get up there like a bajillion times, and then the nerves lessen. And what becomes more and more nerve-wracking is playing to one person. That's tough. It's tough for me to play just to my wife. Like a really emotional song, a song that I've written from a deep place, which is really easy in front of strangers because they don't know. Yeah. They don't have to deal with it either afterwards.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Any quick tips or ideas for people that are nervous about performing to help them get on stage?
I don't know how to help you get on stage, but get on stage. That's the only way. Everybody says it. It's totally true. You just have to do it, and you have to do it a bunch. You have to keep doing it. You have to do it regularly. If you take a big break, even for me, if I take a couple weeks off, I'll have nerves going up the next time to perform in front of people. If you do it every day, it's fine. You still have sort of nerves, but they're good nerves. They help you play better.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, getting on stage, it doesn't have to be, the Met, right?
No,
that's great. You can, but I mean, just even playing in front of your family, just you are the center of attention. You are performing, or even background music too. Just as long as it's a performance.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anytime you can play for people who are willing to listen or not listen, who are willing to tolerate the sound of your music, do it. Yeah. That's what that's what it comes down to. Because when you're really nervous, you're going to fumble, and you are going to fumble when you first get up there. And there's a lot of people who are born performers and hams and stuff who can get up there and it like juices them up. But most people are nervous to bare their heart and in front of people, and also to demonstrate a technical skill. It can fall apart if you're really nervous to play the guitar, stuff that you played in your bedroom. Yeah. Those C chords are so easy to get when you're in your bedroom. Yeah. Go, what string do I put my finger on? You start thinking.
Yeah.
just got to get up there and get through that.
Yeah, no. One thing I've noticed in my performing too is I've had to learn to just let the past be in the past, because once you've made the mistake, it's made. Mm-hmm. The problem is you can let more mistakes happen if I should have done that, and you're not present to the song.
Absolutely. One small practical tip for performing, if you're fumbling, just don't lose the beat.
Yeah. I flub sometimes. I'm like, whatever, and then I actually mute the strings left-handed, and I just keep thumbing the right to keep it going. Exactly.
That people don't even care. Yeah. If you keep the beat going, they're like, okay.
And then they're like, man, look at that. That's cool. Yeah. You did like this percussive thing. Yeah. That was intentional. Cool. Yeah. Well, any other kind of closing thoughts here on songwriting or musicianship that you'd like to share?
I think I'm just a big believer in exploration in both realms, in not trying to achieve some sort of ideal or please some sort of person you've never met. A lot of, you get a lot of advice from business people or people who are trying to sell songs about how a song has to be to impress somebody, or that people will like, publishers or managers, labels, these kind of, they want a certain thing. When in fact, if you go and look at, I don't know, some list of Rolling Stone's 100 greatest songs of all time, you'll find that very few of them do anything like what they're supposed to do. Yeah. And there's songs of all kinds that have been massive hits and that people love, from Stairway to Heaven, your 7-minute epic, to that song There She Goes, which has a chorus, no verse, no anything. It's just a chorus over and over. You can do anything you want to. Yeah. Howlin' Wolf wrote a bunch of songs that are just one chord the whole time. So, experiment. Break out of the verse, chorus, bridge, chorus thing. Try other stuff. Do whatever. Don't get hemmed in.
Yeah, no, I admire your independence and how you've pushed for it. You're a guy that you've been in bands from high school to being in a professional band in your 20s, and in your 30s you can support yourself as a musician, right? And so, last question before we wrap up here: what's next for you?
Oh man, it's more music. What's next for me? I have several ideas for albums in mind, and as I've done 3 full-length albums now, and I'm now trying to experiment with what an album is. Like my first full-length album was a collection of songs that I liked and I had written, but they had no real through line. My second album was songs that were all written very close together for a specific band that I was playing with. And my last album was thematically and sonically pretty cohesive. And now I have different ideas for how to make a cohesive album. You know what I mean? And not a concept album, I'm not doing anything like that, but what makes a 10-song or 12-song collection stick together as one thing and be an enjoyable listening experience. So I have several ideas for those. And it helps focus my writing to do that too. So what is this next collection going to be about? Even though very few people listen to albums, I still like to think about it in those terms, because you end up mining, for me, I end up mining certain musical ideas and literary themes more deeply than I would if I was just trying to write one-offs.
Very cool. I love where you're coming from. I love where you're going. And how can people follow you on social media or other outlets?
They can find me at my website, which is benbostick.com, facebook.com/benbostick. I'm on Instagram at Mr. Ben Bostick, Mr. Ben Bostick.
Baby fantastic.
A quick aside, I named my publishing company Simply Fantastic Music because I thought the line was, she called me Mr. Boombastic, Simply Fantastic. Apparently, he says, say me fantastic.
Say me.
So in error.
Well, that's another publishing company.
It's another publisher.
Yeah.
Whatever. And then I'm on Twitter at Ben Bostick. You can call me at... I'm kidding.
Yeah. well, great. Well, I mean, I love your music. I love the passion, the personality, and the intellect you pour into what you create. And I'm excited to see what's coming next for you. So
Thank you.
We'll close in the traditional 1, 2, 3, rock on! Today, we're in studio at Chord Savvy Central here in Atlanta, Georgia.